Like I said, we are on the Do Bar Patio this morning. Thanks, Lexi, for having us. The Do Bar's been around 5 generations, I think she told us when we walked in the door this morning. I couldn't believe it. You know, I first got here when I moved to Great Falls, Montana. It was in 92, so that's when I met Doug, was in 92. So anyway, we've been talking all morning about classic rock. My opinion of it, different bands, things like that. In my opinion, classic rock, I'm a purist, okay? And everybody knows that. Dave, everybody I talk to. Andy, you've been around me how many years now? You know, Dave's new, but purist. Classic rock is the first and second waves of the British invasion, which would be, your first wave was Herman's Hermits, the Zombies, the Animals, Donovan, Hollies, the Kings, okay? You had your second British invasion, which was like right after, kind of intermingled with it, really. That was the Beatles, the Stones, you know, the Who, Moody Blues. Of course, America countered with Jefferson Airplane, the Byrds, Quicksilver, Jimi Hendrix. And that classic rock movement, Dave, it went from that period, which was 1962, 1964-ish, that area, all the way to the end of the Vietnam War in 1975. In the summer of 1975, that was the end of the classic rock genre. And then after that, you have the radio and the people now that you turn on the radio and they're playing Duran Duran, disco, grunge, heavy metal, and it's all say, well, it's classic rock. No, classic rock is its own genre, and again, it's 62 to 75.
So, what was it like waiting for new records to come out?
I remember Houses of the Holy, Led Zeppelin 5. I was still in high school. I was a junior. And we were like, you got to remember, the last album was Led Zeppelin 4. It had Black Dog, Misty Mountain Hop, Stairway to Heaven, all instant classics. And all of a sudden, you know, we're waiting. We didn't have YouTube and there was no teasers, you know, pre-release tapes. We had 8-track tapes. We had 8-track tapes. So that was something that part of my whole senior year was in anticipation. Houses of the Holy. It was an event, just waiting for album after album to come out. You know what I'm saying? It was just awesome every year. And of course, it was Zeppelin.
Would you say it's in your top 5 albums?
Top 5 albums. Led Zeppelin, my top 5 albums are Beggar's Banquet or Exile on Main Street. I'll go with Exile on Main Street with the Rolling Stones. Beatles, Abbey Road. Cream, Disraeli Gears. 10 Years After a Space and Time. And Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti. So no, Houses of the Holy does not make the top 5. But you know, when you're doing a top 5 album, you're leaving albums like the Doors' first album that has Light My Fire on it. You know, Surrealistic Pillow with Jefferson Airplane. It was also different now back then than it is now too. I went to high school in Missoula, and Missoula we had concerts all the time. I mean, one of the big events, I remember favorite concerts versus what is the best concert. My favorite concert of all time would have to be, it was the senior year, and I was in Missoula, and some of this won't be suitable for children, but it was Missoula in the 70s, and the Doobie Brothers and REO Speedwagon were touring together, and REO was doing their Riding the Storm Out tour, and that was before they became wimps and started doing mushy love songs and sellout. And they were doing the tour with the Doobie Brothers, what were once Vices Are Now Habits tour. So you had two really good rock albums, and we were in Missoula, and it was my senior year, and there just happened to be just this avalanche of pink microdot acid in town the weekend before. And me and a buddy, Clark, hey Clark, you're still alive? Give me a call. I think we picked up like 300. By the time we got to the concert, we had just our own. It was all gone. And I remember through the concert, there was a part where, and I don't know if it was the Riding Star song but there was this lull in the action. And boom! Crash, lights! And the whole crowd just like cringing from the sound and lights. And you knew everybody in town that had become a victim of the pink microdot that had blew through Missoula, that spring day. So rock and roll was different. Times were different, bands were different. Classic rock had more of a political movement to it. We had a war we were protesting, civil rights, women's movements. Funny how we're still doing all that. Wow. But it was a different time. So, that's what we've been covering this morning at the Do Bar. This classic rock from A to Z.
Do you have any favorite record stores in Missoula you like?
Record stores. We had no chain record stores like Capitol had the big tower in Los Angeles. We had the Joint Effort. We'd go to Joint Effort, Bill Steinhoff. That was the head shop in Missoula back in the 70s. Everybody knows who Bill was. If anybody's my age, I graduated way back at 75, so anybody from Missoula, Bill Steinhoff had. He had all the head shop, he had records. I think we had budget tapes and records. I know we had the Aberday Kager, which is a story and an episode all in itself. You could never ever do the Aberday Kager, ever. Now, you could not have a giant kegger with that many people drinking and then driving home, and the police just kind of escorting. So, different times indeed. Classic rock was then, that was really classic rock as it should be.